Yeah, welcome to the channel. It's Saturday morning. It's about 10 o'clock. Beautiful day today. Nice and cloudy out. The air's nice and fresh. Not real hot. Just wind's blowing just a little bit. Just a great time to get out and walk early in the morning. Yeah, it's nice. There's a lot of traffic up here this morning, but you know that's pretty much to be seen. But we're on the southeast corner, and I'm just going to walk in through the soys here and kind of see what's going on. I don't really have any plan for any kind of a walk or where I'm going to go. We'll just kind of see where it ends up. Excuse me, my throat's a little fuzzy, but I've got a story today. I'm going to tell you it's a little bit different, but it's one that you probably would never hear if I didn't tell it to you, because I stumbled onto it, and it's, you know, a lot of times we think about, you know, the things that are happening in the world today, and we're thinking, well, it's the way people are brought up, or the times, and this particular story will kind of put that myth to end. It's really interesting, but anyway, I'm going to turn the camera around now and kind of show you where we're at. And I think what we'll do is we'll walk through this temple up here on the right and come out and walk down Soy 1. And I want to thank everybody that's come into the channel and watched the videos and left comments. It really helps the channel when you do that. It tells YouTube that people are enjoying the channel and they'll push it out to more people. I'm really pleased at the way the channel is coming along. And if you're not doing anything tonight, if I get this up before 8 o'clock, we'll have another live stream tonight at 8 o'clock. And probably Charlie and Greenie and maybe a few others will stop in. And we just talk about bull crap, you know. I mean, you can ask us any kind of questions, we'll answer. And we just kind of have a talk session more than anything else. See, I get across the street here. But the story I'm going to tell you today is different from the other ones that I've told you about. And like I said, I just kind of stumbled up on it when I was going across the internet, and the story intrigued me. It's hard. You'll just have to hear the story to really understand it. But it goes back 100 years ago. And there's a young man by the name of John Thompson. He's 18 years old, just out of high school. Doesn't really have any plan in life. His father's a preacher from Pennsylvania. And he joins the Army as an enlisted man. And this is probably about 1917. Yeah, we'll walk in here. And he's 18 years old, and I think he's having a little bit of a problem adjusting to life a little bit. His outlook on life is a little bit different from most people, and he gets into the Army, seems to do okay, and he gets the opportunity to apply to West Point, the Army Academy, and he's accepted into the academy. Yeah, we'll walk in here. And he attends the academy, and he graduates in 1924. And his first assignment, he's assigned to the Philippines, to the Signal Corps. So he catches a train to San Francisco, and from there he jumps on a ship which takes him to the Philippines. And he lands in Manila, and he's assigned to Fort Mckinley, to the Signal Corps. And this is about November of 1924, I'm sorry, because he spent 4 years in the in the Naval Academy, or the Army Academy. Wow, this is really beautiful. But back in those days, you know, we're talking about the 1920s, and you know, when we were growing up, we always heard about the Roaring '20s, and I assume that that carried off into the military as well. And most of the single guys that were on the officers' clubs, and they had two places that they went to in Manila, and one was called the Army Navy Club, and the other one was the Manila Hotel. And Fort McKinley was about 6 miles outside of Manila. And when these guys were off, they'd hang out at the clubs, and they'd have dances and parties, and you know, I guess the normal kind of things that the military guys do. Well, he meets this young girl at one of the clubs. I think it was the Army Navy Club that he originally met her at, and she's there almost every night that he's there. And he's really this girl's 16 years old. She's the son of a doctor, an Army doctor. The stepdaughter of a captain who was an Army doctor on the base. And they start hanging out together. Matter of fact, just about every night they'd go out and do something, or you know, sometimes they'd just rent a taxi and drive around the city, and really seemed to get along. And he had wrote to his mother, and he described this girl as being the most beautiful girl he's ever seen, and how much in love they were with each other, and apparently she felt the same way about him. And he was really quite infatuated with her. And it doesn't say in the story how her parents felt about it, but by about February, March, and April, things were getting kind of hot and heavy, and really serious. And at that time, he got a notice from the Army, because he had planned on marrying this girl, and he got a notice from the Army that his time as an enlisted man would not go towards his overall pay grade, which meant that he was not going to be making as much money as he thought he was, and it really, really upset him to the point that he was just kind of bewildered by himself, because he had planned on this extra money. And then, now it doesn't say in the story, but you know, as a parent and as a person who's been around a little while, I suspect that possibly her parents were not real fond of this relationship with him, because according to the article, he was very, very possessive. He was very controlling, and her parents decide that they're going to send her back to America at the end of April. Well, this is probably mid-March, and getting towards the end of March, and she tells him that she'll sneak and marry him before she leaves. and that she'll wait for him. You know, I think more than likely the parents did not approve of their relationship, and that's why they were sending her off. And they figured she had 2 more years before she turned 18, and then she could come back to him. And she vowed that she would wait for him. And this really upset him. And he started thinking, and just, you know, the fact that his pay was not going to be you know, sufficient enough to marry her, and he didn't think that she would wait for him. And about the 2nd or 3rd day of April, he gets it in his mind that the only thing he can do is kill her. If he can't live with her and can't marry her, he's you know, he's going to kill her. You know, and this is just, you know, to me, it's just, you know, the whole thought of it's crazy. So he gets a 45 out of that he had checked out of the armory, and he loads it up with bullets, and he's got it. And on the 5th of April, she had made plans to meet him at the Manila hotel. And he gets off of his duty station that night and takes the gun with him, and he goes to the Manila hotel, and she's not there. Now, I don't know if this upset him or whether it, you know, really what happened. But anyway, he goes to the Army Navy Club, and he finds her at the Army Navy Club. And I think in the Army does, I'm reading this from Army records, and the Army doesn't really say, but I assume that they had some type of a disagreement because she wasn't where she was supposed to be, and it just kind of pushed him a little bit. And anyway, they're in the taxi, and he asks her if she loves him, and she says, "I do, but you acting this way, I won't for long." And he pulls out the 45 and he shoots her 5 times. And he said that the bullet made 11 entrance and exit wounds, so, you know, it was pretty close range. And after he shoots her, he tries to shoot himself in the back of the taxi. Now, I imagine this taxi driver is going about berserk, but the 45 jams. And he just tells the taxi driver, she's dead, you know, she's just kind of laid over in the seat. And he tells the taxi driver to drive him to the Fort McKinley, to the guard's hut that they had. And sure enough, he pulls up, and he gets out of the taxi and walks up to the guard and tells him who he is, and tells the guard that he's responsible for killing the girl that's in the taxi. And they immediately snatch him up, and, you know, she's dead. They take her to the hospital, and he's put in the brig. Well, the next day the colonel comes, and here, we'll take a left down here. The next day the colonel comes to interview him, and according to the story in the military law, they don't really have, and this was before they had the Miranda warnings and all that kinds of stuff, but the colonel had to advise him that, you know, it was an inquiry, and anything that he said, you know, could be used against him, and if he didn't want to say anything, you didn't have to. Pretty much the same thing as the Miranda rights, but not quite. But anyway, he acknowledged it. And basically what he said was, after he got the notice that his pay was not going to be he felt like there was no way that he could marry her, and he was concerned that you know, the 2 years that they would be apart, even if she did marry him, that she would change her mind and wouldn't be, you know, wouldn't be there for him. And the thought of him being alone without her, just he couldn't handle it. And right then he said he devised the thoughts to kill her, which would have been around April 2nd. So, you know, they took his statement, they asked him a few other questions and things, and they proceeded to try him. And the trial started, and the Army prosecutors presented some of their case, and they wanted to get the depositions done and the testimony of some of the people on the base prior to them leaving, because apparently a lot of them were going to be shipping out, so they went ahead and got their testimony in. And then the two attorneys that were representing him requested a 1-month recess so they could get statements from people in the United States about his mental capacity, because what they were trying to do is prove he was, you know, mentally insane. And I kind of have to agree with him, because a person in their right mind would not do anything like that. But, you know, this is the Army, and this is back in 1920. In the meantime, the Army has him evaluated by a couple of different psychiatrists and doctors. And they both come back and say that he's mentally competent. He's not, wow, there's kind of neat. He's not got any mental defects that would keep him from knowing right or wrong. I think we'll go right here. And they get depositions from people in the United States that said he was a very possessive person, very not unstable, but just very controlling, and that was his kind of his demeanor. Well, it really didn't do much help. And they ended up having a trial. And the trial lasted like 3 days. And this was, I believe, in August. And they had a military trial, and they found him guilty. And his defense was trying to be, after he refused to enter an insanity plea, he wanted no part of that. Hello. And matter of fact, he told his lawyers if they were going to do the insanity plea that he would fire them. And the reason he felt that way, he said it would be a disgrace to his family, and he didn't want to embarrass his family. But they pretty much went ahead with that anyway. But what they were trying to do is trying to get the premeditated part of it dropped, so it would be something like manslaughter, you know, or a crime of passion. But in his statements, you know, he had said he had planned it on, you know, April 2nd, so that didn't stick. So the panel was out for like 4 hours, and they came back and they found him guilty, and they sentenced him to hang. And anytime something like that is, now we could go left, but I think we walked that not too long ago. Anytime that a person in the military is sentenced to death, it has to be approved by the White House. The president has to approve it. So they took his file and put it on a ship and sent it to San Francisco, and from San Francisco it went by train to Washington, and finally got to the War Department's office in Washington for review. And they had a panel of three judges that reviewed the case, and they also sent his file to psychologists to have it reviewed again to figure out if he was actually truly sane. And the panel, the doctors, agreed with the first doctors that he was totally competent to stand trial, and he was sane. They agreed with it, and the panel that reviewed it, the panel of judges that reviewed it, they also conferred with the finding of the jury that, you know, he should be sentenced and hung to death. Well, the father, this guy's father, decides that he's going to petition to President Coolidge, who actually has the final say on it. This is neat. Wow. So he drafts a letter to Calvin Coolidge, and he basically tells the president that his son has issues, that he has had mental issues for quite some time. And it turns out, in the letter that he writes to the president, this is the clincher part of it, that I think that if there was any hope of this guy getting clemency or getting some kind of relief, this letter to the president just clinched it. I mean, just forgot about it. He tells the president that his son has problems with women, and he goes to hello.
Movie.
Yeah, video.
Video, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
He tells about an incident that happened in Pennsylvania. John had met a girl and went out on one date, and he proposed to her. This is before he was in the Army. Everybody coming around. Let this van get by me. He's all dressed up. Some kind of party going on somewhere. But the girl originally says no, and he pulls out a gun on her because he's so put back. Now, granted, this is the first time he's met this girl, first time he's taken her out, and she tells him no, and he pulls a gun out. This is a great place to have breakfast. If you come here, have breakfast here at least once. Little boy gonna try to sneak through. See which one he can get through. Trying to get a discount. But yeah, they have very, very good breakfast food here. Oh, she can do it. Wow. Let's see which one he gets through. That's funny. That girl, she slipped right through that thing. But the girl tells him, okay, I'll marry you. She says, but I've got to go home and get some things first. And he agrees with it, and he takes her home, and immediately she runs in the house and tells her parents, and you know, they run him off. Well, the next day he joins the Army. The next day. And he tells that to the president. The president reads it and determines that this guy's just there's something, he does not need to be walking the face of the earth, and he signs the death warrant on him. And it gets sent back to Manila. And they set a date of, I believe it was April 25th, 1926 to execute him. And in Fort McKinley, outside the warehouse, they had a place back there. And they'd already, while this is, one of the things that caused him some issues, was the fact that while they were trying his case, an enlisted man had gotten into a fight with another soldier and killed him. And they sentenced him to hang, and they actually hung him. So they felt like if they did anything else other than hang Thompson, you know, they'd have some issues. This is kind of neat. I think I've been back here before. I'm not really sure. We'll be a little bit nosy, not too nosy. There's an old house back here. So on April 26th, they get him. They march him out to the warehouse, and there were 8 enlisted men out there. And they bound his hands behind his back, put a hood over him. The trap door opened, and he was dead. He is the only West Point officer that has ever been executed. And according to the article, you won't find anything about this in the... oh,
Sorry, sir.
that's okay. You might trip yourself. You won't find anything about this in the at West Point. Apparently it's something that they're not real proud of, and they don't broadcast it. And really the only record of it is his trial, that is supposed to be something like 397 pages or something. I don't know, but I thought it was kind of interesting that, you know, even back then in the 1920s they had crap like that happening. And you know, for it to happen to a West Point graduate is even a little bit more bizarre. It had to have been a lot of pressure on the prosecutors and the people involved in that case, because, you know, when you have a trial like that, there's a lot of pressure, and you know, when that jury goes out and you're sitting there, and your whole case is just kind of riding on whatever they think. A lot of anxiety in your chest, and until the jury comes back. You know, I've sat in that situation many times, and you're just on pins and needles. But justice was served. He was hung from the gallows. And back in those days, that was standard punishment for first-degree murder. Now, had they been able to prove that it was an act of passion, he would have got manslaughter. But being that it was obvious that he had planned it, is bizarre, and as, you know, just way off as it is, to imagine that somebody would murder somebody for those reasons, just the fact that his pay would not allow him to. He didn't think his pay at that grade would allow him to marry her, and the fact that they'd be apart for 2 years, that he would rather take her life, is just beyond me. I mean, to me, no doubt the guy was crazy. It's just normal people don't think like that. Well, we are back out here on the moat, and I believe we'll go right. Yeah. But it was an interesting story to read, and I'm gonna leave a link to the entire story in the comments, if you know, section, if you, or not, in the description section, if you want to read it. It made for some good reading material. And it's probably the only documentation of this case that exists. Yeah. Mad dogs. I'm gonna need to stop in here and eat here. I have not ate here in ages. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed that little story, and I'm gonna jump back in the car and go get something to eat. I might even come back here and eat, and go back to the house and relax a little bit. And if y'all can, check in on the live stream tonight, and I'll probably try to have this video up before the live stream. There's somebody else out there blogging. Y'all take it easy. We'll see you later. Bye bye.